All right, so the other day I did a little doodle in gouache of a fly, and it was a lot of fun. I did it during my office hours while I was talking to students, and I thought I'd do another one just to show how quickly you can knock something out with gouache, and just how fun it is just to do, just a little doodly thing. So this is from a reference picture that my sister took of a spider web, and there was a fly up in the corner. And I just sort of zeroed in on it. And I'm using that photo for a reference. It is my intention to leave this background white. Again, I don't want to get too detailed on this, just because it's so often we end up covering over some of our details and then having to rediscover them with gouache. So this is tiny, little painting. So for reference, this paper is about 3.5. Image area is about 3 inches by 3.5 inches. Paper, of course, a little bit bigger because it's taped down. So let's see. I'm probably just going to use a couple of brushes. These two little maybe a 3/8 flat and then a 1/8. It's about a 1/8 flat, and those are what I'm going to use. So I'm going to start out. I'm going to try and be as clear about the method I'm using as I can. So starting with the large flat, large for this, the larger of the two flats I just showed you. A little ultramarine, a little burnt sienna. That's going to make a nice chromatic black. This is nice. It's nicer than using actual black, I think, in a lot of ways, because I can push it either cooler or warmer. More ultramarine is going to make it a little bit cooler. A little more of the burnt sienna will make it, of course, a little bit warmer. And I'm painting this pretty directly. I'm not doing any kind of undercoating. A lot of times I'll do an undercoat, just add some color, get some color down first. But since I want to leave this background white, I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to blob it in my darks, and some white might show through, might not. We'll just sort of see how that goes. And if you recall, the last video I did was the In-N-Out cheeseburger, and that, of course, was a little bit more involved probably than most people wanted to hang around and watch. So hopefully this one will be short and sweet and to the point, and you can get some ideas for your own painting. So a couple of little bits. These probably aren't quite as dark as I'm making them, but I'm going to have some highlights in here, and maybe I can knock them back a peg when I throw some highlights on. But we'll see. A lot of this kind of thing is just sort of, for me, it's just, there's a lot of experimentation involved. Is something going to work? Is it not going to work? I don't know. I give it a try, see what happens. I have to be a little bit more careful with this than I have been with some of my other paintings, simply because I am not leaving myself the option of painting over the background. Of course, if I make a huge mistake, I'm going to have to paint over the background. But the idea is to leave the background white. That's a little on the thick side, but that's all right. Not so thick that I can't sort of come back from it, I think. And again, this flat is so small as to almost be a round, but you can make a variety of strokes with a flat. If I go, with the flat side, I'll make a pretty fat stroke. If I go on edge like that, it's a relatively thin stroke. Some of the greens on this fly are quite beautiful. The last one I did was more greenish, but I think I might get some of these more blue greens in here. Just keep it really, really colorful up at the top here. And then moving down into some more yellow green. So cobalt blue, permanent yellow. Kind of mixing wet into wet here. Get a nice soft sort of blend. And if it dries, that's okay. I can always come back with a little bit of dry brush. And again, I'm reactivating some of this gouache a little bit, which it's not really my intention, but that's okay. I can just gouache is opaque, so I can just kind of come back over it and add some more opaque stuff. So I'm just adding some of this chromatic black in here with my green, a little bit transparent. Some transparent-ish passages in here. Let's get this eye established pretty quickly. So let's go straight fire red with a little alizarin crimson in it, with a darker red on the top of this eye. My drawing is kind of way off on here, so I'm just going to ignore my drawing, which is fine. And let's lighten that up, move a little bit toward orange here for the bottom part of this eyeball. Maybe just a touch of white in there. And that's pretty good. Just kind of looking for the different values. A little bit of a kind of a collar around the eye here. Something like that. And of course, my dark is now gone. I added some white, so I have to remix the dark because you can never get it as dark. If there's some white floating around in there, you're never going to get it quite as dark. So best to just remix it. Lots of little segments and sections here on this guy. And I think for this wing, white, a little bit of green. Need a little bit more water. If you put some paint down and it doesn't quite cover good enough, it usually means you need a little bit of water to get it flowing off the brush. Or sometimes that's just right. Sometimes you want to have that sort of dry, sort of scumbly texture. In this case, I want a little more coverage. Let's push this a little bit more toward the green that we could. Oh my God! Sometimes you can't tell how much blue you get, how much pigment you get. Clearly, that's way too much. Let's kind of mix these together. A little more white and. Just kind of patching in some colors here. Let's see. Should be all a little bit darker down here. I'm gonna adjust this a little bit cooler, a little more ultramarine in there. Ultramarine also gives it a little bit more depth, a little darker look with ultramarine. It's a darker value than the burnt sienna, so. And little by little, we're just gonna sort of patch this together. Let's take a little bit of that and a little bit of water. And let's just establish some of this wing with a nice sort of transparent treatment here. I'm going to let that dry a little bit because I'm going to want to put some highlights on top of that. And I think that'll work out just fine. And switching now to back to my small little 1/8 inch brush. Let's get some more. Let's just oh, I didn't clean it, see, so I just dirtied up that color. I had just the right color and kind of wrecked it. Plenty of blue on there to go around, so let's grab some of that, maybe a little yellow ochre. Just dirty it up just a little bit because it is, my God, it is a fly after all. Okay, not bad. All the way covered. I think I need a couple more of these dark accents in here, these sort of segmented pieces. I just need to sort of orient myself, figure out where I'm going with this. Something like that. There's some interesting little structures in here. And let's see what that looks like when we add a bunch of white. That could work. I wonder if this is dry enough. Try and get some of that shiny look to the fly. These flies are so obnoxious when they're in my studio. These green and blue sort of insects that are quite beautiful when they're quiet and you look at them up close, but when they're buzzing around in your studio, they're so noisy and so annoying. But, you know, you can find interesting things to paint in the strangest places. Although I will say it's not a very strange place. My sister famously takes very interesting pictures with her iPhone. And they're a constant source of joy and amazement to me. They make wonderful little painting subjects. You can just sort of play around, you know. I don't have to paint it exactly the way I see it. I can kind of mess with it a little bit. Get a little bit of a, not quite a highlight, just a little bit of sort of maybe secondary light source in its back here. Still green, but a little bit more bluish. Just trying to pick up a little bit of that look. If I want it to be a little shinier looking, I want to put a darker color closer to my highlights, and that'll give it more of a sense of that shine. And also pump up the jam on the highlights a bit. Oh my God. Mayday, mayday. I've got a big blob of water. Let's just blot it off. That worked out all right. Sometimes you'll get a little droplet of water running down your brush, and it hits the end of the brush at the most inopportune time, and it creates these little pools, these little puddles that you're not you're not expecting and you do not want. So that's why it's a good idea, instead of just wiping the tip of your brush, when you dip your brush, wipe the whole handle down, and that'll save you a lot of grief later on. Let's try and push in some very bright highlights there. That's much better. Throw in the highlight without all the pain and agony of the big water droplet. And now I think I'm ready for the very last bit. Just get some pure white, and let's just look at, this is dry enough for me to throw in some of these very bright highlights. They're highlights, but they're also areas where we can kind of see through the wing. I think that's what's going on here. Maybe they're just shiny spots. I kind of want to follow the sort of the webbing of these wings. Maybe I could cut that down a little bit. I got a little too much going on that vein. There we go. Make some of this kind of intrude into the body of the fly a little bit. Don't want to overdo this because I don't want that wash to show through. I think I let it dry long enough. We need a little bit more color in there. There's a little bit of yellow, or perhaps some yellow ochre that's a little dirtier. That's looking all right. I think let's get some more, just a little more of a highlight on that bottom edge of that wing. Little dry brush coming out there. And this is very close to being done, I think. Just a few finishing touches. We can go back in and mix up some more dark here because I did not contaminate this dark with any white. And just with the edge of the brush, let's make a couple little, it's a little more fly-like sort of shapes coming off of here. If you get too much, I can just take some of the paint off. I kind of vary the size of that, get the hairy little fly. Get a little more girth here. Yeah, I don't want to overdo that too much, but that's not too bad, I think. Let's see. Mix up a little bit of kind of gray. There's a little something on the front of the eye there. In the reference, it's kind of white, but since I have a white background, I'm going to kind of switch it and make that gray. That's all right. And maybe just a little, I don't want a white highlight, but I want maybe something a little bit brighter. There we go. And I think that's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Actually, it's a little thick. Let's throw a little highlight back here, make that a little skinnier. I shouldn't have said thanks for watching just yet because I think I want to build up some of these whites a little bit more. I'll probably just remove There we go. Pretty good. And a little more something dark in here to sort of tie this together. All right, there we go. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to let this dry out just a little bit, and I think if I touch it anymore, I'm going to wreck it. So I'm going to call this one done. And thanks for stopping by. This will probably go on my website for very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive compared to my other stuff, which is all inexpensive, by the way, anyway. So if you want to grab anything, go to craigstevensart.com. And if you have any questions or you'd like to see me paint anything, please, please, please let me know. I would be happy to give something a shot. Thanks again for stopping by, and until we meet again, please paint responsibly.